Welcome to the Sweep College Baseball Weekend Series predictions, where we take 5 of the best, most exciting upcoming weekend series and predict the results. Now, heading into week 14 of college baseball. For a lot of conferences, this is the last week of the regular season before conference tournaments start. So, a lot is on the line for a lot of teams, especially the top of the table. As you can see on the screen right now, there are our individual records. Cumulatively, we are at 500, so we still have a little bit more to go to jump on top of that. But yeah, you can see I've built up a little bit of a gap, but we have a lot of points up for grabs in the postseason as well before things are fully decided. But starting things off with a super exciting matchup, most likely the best of the week, at least on paper. That is number 3 Arkansas going to number 5 Texas A&M. Super exciting. Both of these teams a few weeks ago were number 1 team in the nation. So yeah, it's a little bit of a drop down from what we saw back then. It could have been the 1 versus the 2 a few weeks back, but now 3 versus 5 after a few hiccups here and there for both teams. Both of what we saw from both of these teams recently is their prowess has just slowly diminished. For Arkansas, that's their pitching. Pretty much now it's Hagen Smith and the rest of the starters. It used to be just a 1-2-3 punch that was super talented. Well, it still is super talented, but one that just could not be really handled by any team. There have been a few iffy moments the past few weeks where their pitching hasn't been as great, but the offense has started to pick up the slack a little bit, and in a place where we haven't seen them all season. Last week, the offense definitely picked up the pitching staff more than we're used to. And then Texas A&M, kind of the reverse, where, well, we've seen both good pitching and hitting, but definitely led by the offense for Texas A&M. And the past few weeks have been a real struggle for them offensively. Definitely hit a low point of the season, and this is not the time of the year where you want to be doing that. But I have full faith that they can bounce back from that. I think at home at Texas A&M, they'll be able to turn the tides here, get their offense back, especially taking advantage of the Arkansas pitching staff that has struggled a little bit recently. So I'm gonna stick with Texas A&M here.
Yeah, this one's really tough. I think I'm going to go with Arkansas here. I think I just want to lean on their pitching staff here, and Texas A&M's offense has looking shaky the last couple weeks, and I don't think the best way to get that started is to face the best pitcher in the country on Friday, and so I'm just going to give Arkansas a good edge in that Friday game. I think they'll be able to take it for that reason, and then just hope they can pull off one of the last two.
Yep, makes sense. Then the second series we have on deck is number 7 North Carolina going to number 13 Duke. Both these teams have been around the top 10 pretty much the entire year. North Carolina playing super well right now. Duke has, I don't know, it feels like they haven't ever fully hit their full potential, I feel like. Especially this Duke pitching staff, at least the bullpen that was supposed to be top of the class by far this year. Just seems like no team has had an amazing bullpen, Duke included in that. So they have definitely had their struggles. Still staying around the top 10 for the majority of the year. They've just been getting the job done, but haven't looked the cleanest out there. For that reason, I'm going to give North Carolina the edge to take this series. I think overall they're just a little bit more consistent on a week in, week out basis and able to take the game on the road here.
Yeah, I also like North Carolina in this series this weekend. The offense is just really clicking right now. There's a lot of star power throughout that lineup. And like you said, the Duke pitching staff has just been a little inconsistent and shaky throughout the year. Has never really been bad or terrible, but it's never been great and quite up to that potential we saw coming into the year. So I'm going to lean on North Carolina, even though they're on the road.
Yeah. And next up, another super exciting matchup. We have number 4 Oregon State going to number 20 Arizona. This is for the Pac-12 title. Arizona has a 1.5 game lead there. So if they can win the series or just grab one game, they'll take it. But it's a very, very tough task to beat this Oregon State team. Oregon State offense has led the way the entire year. Pitching has slowly started to become more and more of an asset, especially the past week. They definitely looked settled down, but I think Arizona is not the place you want to go if you have pitching inconsistencies. And this Arizona pitching staff has looked phenomenal. Their stats are incredible for where they play in Arizona. Their ballpark is a very, very hard place to pitch at, and for them to keep those stats going the entire year is tremendous. And for Oregon State, I feel like their pitching might be dismantled here in Arizona, so I'm going to go with Arizona. They're used to playing there, and they know what they're doing, and led by that pitching staff is super impressive. Just seems like they have 3 aces, and that's what they're calling them. So, yeah, I feel like Arizona will be able to, at least win the conference, but I think they'll take the series here as well.
Yeah, I think we are going to see some low-scoring games in this series, which going into the year, you say Arizona, Oregon State, playing at Arizona's ballpark, you're going to expect a lot of runs because usually a lot of talent on both of those offenses, but both these guys have some really good starting pitchers, and so it's going to be some low-scoring games, and I'm going to lean with Oregon State here. I think it's going to be a tough one. I do think Arizona grabs at least one game, like you said, just to hang on to that conference title. Shouldn't be too much of an ask from them, but I do think Oregon State will come away with the series win.
Nice. And next up, we have number 10 Wake Forest going to number 11 NC State. So this is the closest teams rank-wise where we have matching up here. I feel like Wake Forest is starting to turn things around. We've said this multiple times this year. The offense has definitely turned it around. The pitching this past week was good, but we have seen that previously where the pitching looks like they're getting back on track, and then the next week they completely fumble it. And I think this might be the case here with NC State. NC State is the killer in the conference. They've been able to take off every single big dog they faced pretty much, besides Florida State where they went 1-1, was not able to get that final game in there. But every other time they faced one of the best teams in the conference and in the country, they've been able to take the series. And at home, I just feel like NC State has this thing wrapped up. They've been really impressive when they face good teams, and I think this is just going to be another head on the mantle.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to take NC State here. It's extremely difficult because, like you said, there's multiple times throughout the year. It looks like Wake is turning the corner. If they're clicking, they're one of the most talented teams in the country. I don't think anyone would argue that Wake has more talent top to bottom than NC State, but we've seen it throughout the year. NC State plays extremely well against that top competition, and it feels like they do have something to prove going into this last weekend. Could get themselves into hosting contention with the series win and taking down the preseason pick to win the conference. So it'd be big for momentum heading into the postseason, and I think they'll take it at home.
Yeah, should be a super exciting series. And lastly, last but not least, we have number 18 UC Santa Barbara going to Cal State Northridge. This is if UC Santa Barbara can, I believe, win at least one game here, they lock up the conference. So should be an exciting series no matter what happens. I think Cal State Northridge, pretty solid squad, but on paper, UC Santa Barbara should be able to take it. But, you never know. They might be feeling the pressure a little bit more than usual on the road here, trying to lock up the conference and take that thing. And they're in position right now to potentially host. So if they're able to win the series, maybe they have to sweep to keep that RPI in a good spot. But if they're able to do that, they're in a great spot to be able to host, especially for one of the few Western schools that have that option right now. So I'm going to go with UC Santa Barbara. I think they'll be able to break through the pressure and win this series. I just think they outmatch the competition for the most part, and they've looked good the entire season. They've only had a few slip-ups here and there, and I think this won't be one of them.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Santa Barbara on the road here. We saw some incredible pitching performances from that staff this last weekend, and I think they'll be able to carry that momentum over onto the road and solidify themselves as a team that is in the conversation to host. We'll see how things shape up this last weekend and with conference tournaments, but they're certainly in the conversation right now, and I think this is a big weekend to help solidify that, especially if they're able to pull off a sweep. That would say a lot.
Yeah, it's a very exciting week to solidify where teams end up in the standings and where they maybe place if they have a conference tournament. Some don't with one of those this weekend, but yeah, for the most part, a lot of conference tournaments coming up, and this is very important for taking advantage of seeding and just getting the RPI in the right place. But be sure to keep an eye out later this week, where we'll be posting our reactions from these series predictions, as well as putting out our new rankings once all the games have finalized on Saturday or Sunday. So yeah, be keeping an eye out for that. And until next time, see ya.